It's one of the biggest casual games in history, second only to Tetris. It's been in more systems than the avian bird flu, and to date has sold over 15 million copies worldwide. Get ready to go cliff jumping, because this week, we're talking about Lemmings. Please don't actually jump off a cliff. Please don't do that. Before they single-handedly caused the collapse of society as we know it by unleashing Grand Theft Auto onto an unsuspecting public, DMA Design knocked out a little game called Lemmings. A deceptively complex puzzle game involving green-haired little shits in blue jumpsuits just trying to get on with their lives without getting stomped, smushed or splattered. Like all of history's greatest games, Lemmings was originally released for the Amiga in 1991 and sees the player using the mouse to issue commands to a group of lemmings all hell-bent on simply walking forward regardless of the obstacles, pitfalls and hazards in their path, with the goal of helping them dive headfirst into the hole at the end. Apropos of nothing, your mum's a big fan of this game. The easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master nature of the game made it a runaway success on the Amiga, and it wasn't long before Psygnosis, who owned the rights to DMA's game, had it ported to just about every other system going at the time, from home computers like the PC and the Atari ST, to consoles like the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and for some reason the 3DO. There was a version put out for the Commodore 64, one of the last commercial games to be released for the system, and there was even an arcade version in the works that was shit-canned before it was even finished, though ROMs of the prototype exist out in the wilds of the internet. DMA also released seasonal standalone level packs for the Amiga and the PC, initially as free cover disc demos to promote the game, but later as a fully fledged commercial product you could buy with your hard-earned money. Incidentally, a Merry Christmas. To me. From you. Don't question it, just let it happen. Each port of the game had its own technical pitfalls to overcome. The levels in the original Amiga version are more or less stored as compressed image files, which allowed the developers to do some inventive and downright frustrating things with a level design that wouldn't be possible with a tile-based system, and during the porting process, these files could be easily transferred over to other home computer systems. Much like photos of your mum. Yeah, I'm making fun of your mum again, she's easy, let's move on. But this was less ideal for porting the game to consoles like the NES, the Game Boy and the Sega Master System, and while the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis versions look considerably better than their 8-bit cousins, they're still a noticeable graphical hit when compared to the Amiga and PC versions. Later console ports for systems like the 3DO and the PlayStation look much more like the original, being as they were slapped onto systems that aren't so rigidly dependent upon tile-based mechanics. Most console ports use their system's gamepad as input, with the developer deciding to faff about with all those extra buttons, adding features and forcing players to navigate the command menu using shoulder buttons. Ugh. And you thought touchscreen gimmicks were bad. Now, Lemmings has seen a number of ports, remakes and sequels over the years for a plethora of systems during the 90s, but that wouldn't last forever. Psygnosis, who owned the Lemmings brand, were bought by Sony in 1993, and when Sony decided to enter the console market themselves in 1994, it was only a matter of time until they decided to stop letting the other hardware manufacturers play with their toys. It took a while though, and Lemmings was still being ported to new systems as late as 2000, when a port incorporating the Oh No More Lemmings expansion was released for the Game Boy Color, alongside a brand new PC-exclusive sequel, Lemmings Revolution. But after 6 years of Sony sitting on this mega brand of classic gaming with their thumbs up their asses, they eventually announced a remake for their debut handheld, the PSP. Developed by Analid enthusiasts, Team 17, the remake featured almost all of the original levels lovingly remade in pre-rendered 3D, but the animation is far more rigid than the fluid sprites of the original release. By the way, this is a remake as opposed to a port. Compare with other HD re-releases like the Silent Hill HD Collection, which are ports rather than remakes. That may sound confusing because the gaming press likes to refer to these things universally as remakes, but it makes much more sense when you remember that your average game journalist has the IQ of a strawberry Pop-Tart that's just received a rejection letter from Greendale Community College. This release was ported to the PlayStation 2 later in the year with an additional iToy mode nobody cared about, though in fairness that's only because nobody really cared about the iToy. It's almost as though people can't quite bring themselves to get excited about camera-based peripherals. Crazy. The latest and to date last entry in the series isn't a port at all, but rather a disappointing pseudo-sequel come remake for the PS3, also developed by Team 17, that still looks just as stiff and dull, and it just isn't anywhere near as fun, and that's really the big problem with modern Lemmings games, isn't it? Sony seems insistent on the series being the latest and greatest, and perhaps most frustratingly only available on their own consoles, but the decision to keep Lemmings off of other systems seems a bizarre one, considering the wide appeal of the series, and has probably contributed to its more or less vanishing from the public eye. There was a point in the 90s where Lemmings was absolutely everywhere, everyone knew what it was and how to play it. Now it's been supplanted by other similarly easy to pick up games like Angry Birds and Candy Crush Saga. There is a new sequel in the works for the PS Vita called Lemmings Touch, but it's ironic and disappointing that in the age where gaming is arguably bigger than ever thanks to smartphones and the casual market, that people have to shell out upwards of $200 if they want to even think about playing one of the simplest puzzle games with the widest mass appeal of any game of its kind. Nonsense.